Welcome to the WWII Unfolded. This is an original documentary-style breakdown of how Allied oil pipelines turned fuel into a weapon based on historical records and careful interpretation. Let's begin. May 1940, northern France. German tank divisions are racing across enemy territory at speeds nobody thought possible. Allied commanders are watching in shock as their defenses crumbled in just days, not weeks. The impossible is happening right before their eyes. But here's what makes this story even more incredible. Military experts predicted German forces would run out of fuel within the first week of sustained operations. Instead, the Blitzkrieg rolled forward like an unstoppable machine. What kept these tanks moving when they should have been sitting ducks? The answer will change everything you thought you knew about World War II's most famous strategy. The Blitzkrieg wasn't just about having fast tanks and brave soldiers. It was a completely new way of fighting wars. Traditional armies moved slowly, like giant chess pieces on a board. They would set up supply lines, dig trenches, and prepare for long battles that could last months or even years. But Germany had a different idea. They wanted to hit hard and fast, breaking through enemy lines before anyone could react. The German military called this lightning war, and it required three main things: powerful armored tank divisions, airplanes for close support, and mechanized infantry that could keep up with the tanks. However, all of these machines had one major weakness. They consumed massive amounts of fuel. A single panzer tank could only travel about half a mile on 1 gallon of gasoline, making fuel the most critical supply of all. Germany faced a crisis that could have ended the Blitzkrieg before it even started. Every tank division needed hundreds of tons of fuel just to operate for a single day. Fighter planes and bombers consumed even more. The 1939 invasion of Poland alone used up an astonishing 64% of Germany's total oil supply for that entire year. Military planners calculated that a full-speed offensive would drain available fuel reserves in less than 2 weeks. The country simply didn't have enough oil wells or refineries to support such an aggressive strategy for long. Germany had to rely on imported oil from Romania and synthetic fuel produced from coal. Allied intelligence officers knew this. They studied the numbers carefully and concluded that Germany couldn't maintain high-speed operations for extended periods. Based on what battlefield records show, Allied commanders assumed they just needed to survive the initial assault, and then German forces would grind to a halt like cars running on empty. But something unexpected happened during those early invasions that changed everything. Historical records show that German forces captured more fuel than they actually used during their initial Blitzkrieg campaigns. As German forces pushed into Poland, France, and other territories, they discovered enemy fuel depots, storage facilities, and supply dumps that were captured intact. Sometimes retreating armies didn't have time to destroy their own supplies before German forces arrived. Other times, the German advance was so fast that demolition teams couldn't reach the facilities in time. German commanders quickly realized they had stumbled upon an incredible advantage. Instead of relying only on fuel trucked in from Germany, they could use captured enemy resources. Tank commanders reported finding entire warehouses full of gasoline and diesel. Airfields taken in the morning provided fuel for German planes by afternoon. This could help explain why German offensives maintained their momentum when they should have been slowing down due to fuel shortages. The Germans didn't just find fuel, they became experts at using it immediately. German engineering units developed rapid techniques for taking over captured facilities and infrastructure. They brought special equipment that could quickly connect German pumps to captured storage systems. Within hours, fuel that was meant for French or Polish forces was being distributed to German tank divisions instead. These engineering teams traveled right behind the frontline troops. As soon as an area was secured, they got to work. They repaired damaged facilities, set up temporary storage tanks, and established refueling stations for advancing units. Based on how quickly these operations happened, some military historians believe this engineering capability was planned before the invasions even started. Germany seemed to have prepared specifically for capturing and using enemy fuel infrastructure. The speed of these operations was remarkable. What would normally take weeks to establish was accomplished in days or even hours. Several major battles tell the story of this fuel advantage. During the invasion of France in May and June 1940, German tank divisions pushed toward the English Channel in a massive offensive. Allied commanders expected the Germans to stop and wait for supplies to catch up. Instead, the panzers kept moving at full speed. Intelligence reports from that time show Allied officers expressing genuine confusion about how German forces maintained their rapid attack without running out of fuel. In another instance, German mechanized units bypassed heavily defended positions by simply going around them and taking longer routes. This strategy only worked because they had enough fuel to take those extended paths. A German tank division that was supposedly running on fumes suddenly appeared 50 miles from where Allied intelligence expected them to be. These unexpected movements changed the outcome of entire campaigns. Based on what battlefield reports suggest, we can assume that captured fuel supplies gave German commanders options that shouldn't have existed according to pre-war planning. Allied intelligence made a critical mistake in their calculations. They accurately measured German fuel capacity based on what Germany produced and imported from Romania, but they failed to properly account for how quickly German forces could seize enemy resources before they could be destroyed. This intelligence failure had serious consequences for Allied defensive strategies. Battle plans were built on the assumption that German advances would naturally slow down due to fuel shortages after the first week or two of fighting. When that didn't happen, Allied forces found themselves caught in the wrong positions. Commanders had to completely rethink their plans in the middle of active battles. Some military historians argue this represents one of the biggest intelligence failures of the early war years. The captured fuel supplies allowed German forces to operate far beyond their expected range and duration. Tank divisions could pursue retreating enemies instead of stopping to refuel from their own supply lines. Aircraft could fly more missions per day. Supply trucks could make extra trips to forward positions. This extended operational reach created what military experts call a self-reinforcing cycle. The faster German forces moved, the more territory they captured. More territory meant more captured fuel depots and storage facilities. More fuel meant they could move even faster and penetrate even deeper into enemy territory. Based on campaign analysis, this cycle helps explain why the Blitzkrieg seemed so unstoppable in its early stages during 1939 and 1940. The strategy wasn't just about speed and surprise anymore. It had gained an unexpected logistical advantage that multiplied its effectiveness beyond what German planners had originally anticipated. The psychological impact of well-fueled German operations cannot be overstated. Allied soldiers and commanders expected German advances to slow down and eventually stop due to supply problems. When that didn't happen as predicted, morale suffered significantly. Troops began to feel like they were fighting an enemy with unlimited resources and unstoppable momentum. Defensive positions that should have been safe for at least a few days suddenly came under attack much sooner than expected. Commanders who thought they had time to regroup and reorganize their defenses found German tanks at their doorsteps. This created a sense of hopelessness in some Allied units during the early campaigns. If the enemy never seemed to run out of fuel, how could they ever be stopped? The psychological advantage was almost as important as the tactical advantage on the battlefield itself. The Blitzkrieg's fuel lifeline changed how military strategists thought about modern warfare for decades to come. It proved that aggressive forces could potentially live off captured supplies in ways previous generations of military planners couldn't have imagined. The incredible speed of modern mechanized warfare meant that defenders had far less time to destroy their own resources before retreating. This realization influenced military planning throughout the rest of World War II and beyond. It also revealed a significant weakness in Allied defensive strategies during the early war years. They had assumed that distance and supply lines would naturally slow down any attacker, just like in previous wars. But in the age of tanks, trucks, and airplanes, those old rules didn't apply in the same way anymore. The German success with captured fuel showed that rapid offensive operations could actually become partly self-sustaining under certain conditions, at least in the short term, during successful campaigns. However, this strategy had clear limits that eventually became apparent. It only worked during successful, fast-moving campaigns where enemy forces retreated quickly and couldn't destroy their supplies. When German forces pushed into the Soviet Union in 1941, they faced much longer distances, worse roads, and an enemy that was better prepared to destroy resources before retreating. The same fuel problems that Allied intelligence had predicted finally caught up with German forces. Field Marshal Erwin Rommel in North Africa famously said his tactics were decided more by his fuel gauge than by tactical requirements. He even had nightmares about running out of fuel. The initial blitzkrieg advantage worked brilliantly in Poland, France, and other Western European campaigns, but it couldn't sustain the longer, deeper operations that Germany later attempted. This shows how the captured fuel strategy was powerful, but temporary, working best in specific conditions that Germany couldn't maintain as the war expanded. If you found this story fascinating, please hit that like button and subscribe to the channel for more incredible World War II history. Drop a comment below and let me know what other untold stories from the war you'd like to hear about. Your support helps me bring these amazing historical moments to life.